It's a good morning for Northern Superior shareholders. I'm with Simon Marcotte, CEO, and Northern Superior is out with expansion, new expansion, step out, drilling down dip into hanging wall zone at the Corsac Fox zone at the Philibert Project in the Chibougamau gold camp. 11.99 grams per ton. Maybe we can round that up to 12. 12 grams over 9 meters in a new intercept in an area that doesn't have a lot of drilling. So Simon, well done.
Thank you very much. I wish I could take the credit, but the gold is there and our team found it.
So tell us what this means for the project and the expansion.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing up the a bit of the details of the press release. But yeah, so a lot of data in that press release. But if you look at the headlines, yeah, we can round up to 12 grams a ton over 9 meters. It also interestingly include a short intercept, which has 101 gram a ton, which is very uncommon for the Philibert deposit to have these type of super high grade. And also we have another hole, 65 meters of 1.75 gram a ton. That includes 3.9 gram a ton over 17 meters. But then there's a lot more holes and data into the press release. So now the way I look at it, there's two kind of holes into that press release. One group of holes, call it like take a look at 489, 490, 492, 494. 490 is where you have this intercept with 100 gram a ton. This is, as you mentioned, in an area where we had very little drilling. This is an area that the rock was considered waste. So now we're, not only filling in the mineralization, but we're filling in the mineralization at higher grade. So not only we're adding ounces, but we are increasing the grade at least in this area of the deposit. But then look at where it is. If you look at a long section of the deposit, and we have one into the press release, you'll see that the pit was kind of coming up at some point, right? So the bottom of the pit was coming up. Kind of the way I visualize it is, if you fill up the pit with water, we almost had kind of an island come up in the middle. This is what we have now demonstrated to be mineralized. So it's easy to visualize how economic that rock really can be. And the holes of that group that we released this morning, they're also kind of very close to one another, right? So it should definitely add ounces into our next resource update. Hole 490 also to the north of the pit gives us a chance to once again make the pit wider, and the wider the pit goes, the deeper the pit goes, and the deeper the pit goes, the more we can include the high grade stuff we have at depth into the pit. So that increases the economic of the pit. So that's a very exciting batch of results. Now, the other type of holes that you have into that press release, so look at hole 404, 405. So it starts very shallow, right? So hole 404 starts at 7 meter for 1.8 gram over 18 meters. And also in the same hole, deeper, you have 1.75 gram over 65 meters. And then hole 505 starts at 9 meters only for 33 meters of about 1.3 gram a ton. So those two holes drilled in parallel to the structure. So that gives us a lot of information for the metallurgy, the modeling, and it helps also demonstrating the economics, especially that it shows that this section at least is not nuggety, but more importantly, it's near surface, probably very, very low strip. And if you ask me, I think we're zeroing in here on what will be the starter pit of Philibert which is always very important when you start looking at the economics, because it starts very, very shallow, right? So very, very thin overburden. So the less overburden you have to remove at first, obviously that's less capex, but then you also get to the cash flow a lot faster, which lowers your payback period of the project. And the payback period is, to my view, the most important economic data of a project. That's usually what makes or break a project or decides what project gets funded or not. So very good results. This project continue to delivers a lot with the drill bit. Let's not forget that just a few weeks ago, we announced that we found, as you know, a big, well, we don't know how big it is yet, but we found definitely a high grade zone at depth. And that's quite exciting. Our stock reacted very well when he announced that. So high grade at depth is not uncommon for Chibougamau. But if you are going to find a high grade zone, the best place to find it is right at the bottom of your pit, right? So you access it after you mine the open pit, then you access via a ramp the high grade zone at depth instead of having to sink a shaft, right? So these high grade zones in the Chibougamau Gold Camp, just like Monster Lake that IAMGOLD has, are very, very valuable to a camp. You can compare it. National Bank, as you know, compares this camp to Fort Knox, the Fort Knox mine complex of Kinross. So a lot is going our way right now. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah, very good overview. So all the holes that you reported this morning, I think I count 7, are all within possible open pit depth, less than 300 or so meters deep. And almost all the intercepts that you show in the table are above the average grade of the existing, resource, above 1.1 grams per ton. So at Philibert, you're currently about 2 million ounces at 1.1 grams per ton. So I like to look forward, as I think a lot of investors do. How much do you think this can grow from here? And do you think the average grade will actually increase?
Yeah, so I think definitely, right? I mean, if you look at the drilling success we had to the southeast, the drilling success we had on the north side and the south side of the pit, and the drilling success we've had to the west, plus the drilling success we had with a possible underground high-grade zone, definitely we're looking at a larger deposit. How large? Listen, I don't like to promise things where we're going to get there. It needs to be modelized. This is what we are doing right now. And then as far as the grade, I'll mention this. So if you look into the sensitivity table of Philibert, we used a 0.35 cutoff. And that gives us, as you mentioned, 1.1 gram a ton, which is, typical. Actually, I would say a little bit better than the typical average Canadian grade for bulk tonnage operation. But if you move up that cutoff just a tiny bit, our grade shoots right up, right? So if you take our cutoff from 0.35 to 0.5, we only lose about 10% of the ounces, which speaks to the quality of the ounces, but then our grade shoots right up. So definitely, it's about finding the right level, with the more efficient level there. But clearly now with the drill bit, we are not only adding ounces, but looks like we can increase the grade, at least for certain areas. So, time will tell. I'm not a geologist, and I'm even less a
resource modeler.
But listen, we're finding the right stuff at the right time with the right strategy. I think it's the way to put it.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the project is growing, and it could grow quite a bit further. But then also a couple of weeks ago, you announced new projects that you've acquired. I think I count 4 new projects, including what could be the western extension of the Philibert. Tell us about these new acquisitions and what's the strategy here.
Yeah, so the strategy has been clear from day one. Rarely in this business you have an opportunity to consolidate a camp like this. First you need to find the geology, right? Obviously you can't invent the gold. So this camp is perfectly suited for a hub and spoke operation, i.e., all of these deposits, all of these pits can feed the same mill, the same centralized mill. So rarely do you have an opportunity to find one, but also all of these camps are generally owned already by a major producer. In fact, that's the only camp that I know of that have reached this type of size that is not, if not owned, at least controlled by one of the super majors. Now, IAMGOLD will be the driving force of this camp. So the strategy for us was to consolidate these ounces, right? Because if you go back 3 years ago, all of these ounces were owned by 5 different companies. So being fragmented, nothing would happen. So we consolidated the camp. We're making these ounces more viable, therefore more valuable, right? So that's been a strategy from day one, and we've been executing on that. And now we keep executing, and we acquired some projects that we've had our eyes on for quite some time. So the first one is Hazeur, right? So Hazeur is it's clearly the western extension of Philibert. In fact, if you go back, many years, that's where the first gold showing were discovered on Hazeur, and then it really grew towards Philibert. But if you look into our deposit, if you look at a map, if you look at everything, you'll see that our deposit goes right into Hazeur. So clearly, we have an opportunity to expand to the west now with this acquisition. And I think, as a finance person, the way I look at this transaction is we paid pretty much the value that we already know we have in the ground. What I mean by that is when you do your resource calculation, it needs to be pit constrained, right? But you need to start your pit on your claims. And because we did not have Hazeur, we needed to kind of cut things short a little bit, and we had to leave out some of the gold that we know is there. So now we can make, obviously, the pit wider, and we basically paid for Hazeur the equivalent of the gold that we already know we have in the ground there, right? So that made it a no-brainer for us to acquire. But then Hazeur is not a small piece of land; it's a big piece of land to the west. So that gives us a lot of opportunity to explore. We now have 15 kilometers of exposure to the Gertrueville fault, on which Philibert is all laid, right? So a lot of expansion there. So that was an obvious acquisition for us to make. And then came, the way I look at it, almost for free, Monster Lake East and Monster Lake West. Needless to say, stating the obvious, it's on either side of Monster Lake, which is owned by IAMGOLD, which is higher grade, right? So Monster Lake has a very high graded depth, so that's an underground ore body. So very prospective land that we went after as well, and now we can go and explore those as well. So there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit to grab here in this camp, and the market's reacting well. We did the financing, as you know as well, Robert, recently. Another financing, we could probably have raised 10 times this amount of money. We wanted to limit dilution. Always on very good terms, no warrants. I hate warrants. So the last 3 financings we did, no warrants, and now there's no more warrants in this company outstanding, which really makes it that the stock can breathe and the stock can react, right? Because warrants very often put pressure on your stock and keeps a lid on your stock. So very proud of the fact that we have a very, very good capital structure right now.
Yeah, fantastic financing. You raised on strength, and you didn't take more than you had to advance the company to the next stage. I have to ask you one more question just because I'm curious while I have you. So you said a new resource update at Philibert, but you didn't put a timeline on it. And then you have this new acquisition of the property to the west, which has a lot of expansion potential. So my mind goes to, should you continue to expand and step out to the west first prior to a resource update, or will you just go ahead with the update?
I don't have an answer to that question, Robert. This is what we're compiling right now. And we had an enormous amount of drilling success, right, with the drill bit, with this 20,000 meter drilling program. But you never know if, the holes are, what you found are close enough to add the ounces that you want to add. Sometimes you need to go back and fill some gaps. And clearly, adding Hazeur now into the next resource, and some low-hanging fruit that we can get going to the west would move the needle as well. So I don't have an exact timing for our next resource update, but there's one down the line that's for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. I totally understand. Yeah, you need to do some more work and get a better gauge on the expansion potential, stepping out to the west onto the new property. So fantastic set of results this morning. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks for having me on.